Hello, Professor Williamson. What a pleasure to have you for this interview.
Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you so very much. So, sir, with over 20 years in the education space, I would really want to know, how did you get into education? Was it a calling or did you stumble upon it? Please tell us the story.
I think it was a little bit of both. I must admit, when I went to college in my undergraduate program, that was a very life-changing experience for me. I knew of college, my parents encouraged me to go, but I really didn't have quite a sense as to what that was all about. And I quickly became just enamored with the idea of a university. I mean, it sounds kind of geeky to say, but it was having such a big, profound impact on me. I had never seen an organization or institution do what it was doing. And not just me, but I began to think about, wow, this institution can really have a major impact on the community. And I thought to myself, well, I don't know if I ever wanted to lead an organization. I really want to believe in that organization. So how would you lead this? This seems like a great organization to lead. And to be quite honest, I didn't really know what that meant. I did not realize being a professor was a full-time job. I actually thought it was a part-time job that people were doing. I had never heard of getting a PhD. I didn't know what that was. But I was very fortunate in that I had a really good mentor, one of my undergraduate professors, who really took me under his wing and talked to me a little bit about what he did, explained to me what a PhD was, explained to me like what leadership was in a university and like why you needed to get a PhD if you want to be a leader in a university. So all of this just opened my eyes. And then I had a second opportunity where I applied to a program called the PhD Project. And this was a program designed to encourage underrepresented minorities in the United States to pursue PhDs in business. And that really is when it all clicked. At that time, I sort of had a set of mentors that I could relate to that were doing work that I had never heard of before, but we really found it fascinating, research and teaching. And so that really started my academic career. And after working for several years, I went back to get my PhD. And then be really focused on being a scholar, but that desire to sort of support and build and enhance the impact of a university was always there, which ultimately led me to take on administrative roles. Not that I thought that would take me around the world, but it did.
And so tell us about your world tour. How did that get started?
I must be honest. This was not a goal or a plan of mine at all. In fact, I started my academic career as a professor at the University of Maryland. That would have been in 2000. At that time, I did not have a passport. I never even thought about getting a passport. And I noticed something after a few years of teaching there, that many of my students were not from the United States. Individual like yourself that were coming to the United States to get an MBA. And I was really fascinated with the perspectives they brought in my classroom. Time after time, when we were having discussions in my classes, and I'm an HR professional, so I was teaching management, they would bring perspectives that I simply had never thought of or heard of. And it became really fascinating to me. And I had an opportunity I was invited to go teach a course, an executive MBA course in Poland. Never been to Poland before. In fact, that was the only reason I got a passport. It's because I agreed to do this. And it really opened my eyes up to a whole nother community that I knew very little about. And I saw how business management was really having a huge impact in that country at that time, which was really coming out of communism and forming its first free market. That sparked something in me. I decided a year later that I would apply to job opportunities all around the world, just because I was very curious and I wanted to challenge myself. And I'd never been to Australia before, did not know anyone in Australia, but was fortunate enough to receive a job offer from the University of Melbourne in Melbourne, Australia, to join the Melbourne Business School. And that started the whole process. Thought I'd do that for a year or two. I ended up being there for 10 years and ultimately becoming the associate dean. Then was recruited to become a visiting professor in Indonesia, where I worked with the Institute of Technology Bandung to support the development of their entrepreneurship program. And then was recruited to become the Pro Vice Chancellor of Victoria University of Wellington in New Zealand, where I sat on the university leadership team and also had responsibility for the Wellington School of Business and Government. And today, I'm very fortunate. I'm the Dean of the Merage School of Business here in the University of California, Irvine. To some extent, full circle, although I must admit I've never had lived in California before or visited the university really before I started this job. So it's been a whole new learning cycle for me, but I've been very blessed in my journey in the sense that I've been able to do that thing that I really envisioned myself doing when I was an 18-year-old, which is help lead universities so that they have a bigger impact on their community. But it's in a much broader set of communities than I ever would have envisioned.
And so you have this beautiful story of not having a passport to taking these, I would say, wise risks. I mean, Australia, especially you don't know anybody there. And after your passport, you decide that's the place to sort of, go down and settle for almost a decade. And so what is your personality? Is it do you seek adventures? Do you seek the unknown? And sort of when somebody opens your eyes, you're just all in. So what's happening there?
Oh man, yeah. I think if I had to describe myself, I would say I'm curious. I've always been a curious person. When I was an undergraduate, I mentioned to you I had a very good mentor. His name is Dr. Wesley King. He was my professor I went to Miami University of Ohio for my undergraduate degree. And he said something to me that stuck with me. And it probably was just a comment he made in passing, but it really made a difference in my life. He said, as an academic, if you want to, you can get paid to learn something new every day. And he said, not everybody chooses that option, but if you want to do that in this profession, you can. And I thought that was the most amazing thing that you could ever find in a job, the chance to learn something new every day. So I have always embraced that. It's not like I was randomly taking risks or necessarily adventuresome, but if I had a chance to learn something new and I thought it would further my development or provide opportunities for my family, fortunately, my family and we were willing to try it. So that's worked out really well for us. And I think it's also just made this a very enjoyable journey.
Okay. And so, Professor Williamson, tell me, I mean, the world, when you interact with the world does change you. And you sort of have traveled across the globe. So I really want to know, with your diverse set of work, the kind of people you've met, the kind of institutions you've worked in, how has it shaped you into the individual you are? And how is it then shaping, in turn, the program that you're leading, the position that you're in?
I've been very fortunate to have not just lived in 4 different countries, but I've worked in 30 different countries through my consulting work or through my research activity with various different companies across a wide variety of sectors. And what has stood out for me is how important it is to contextualize business within culture. And I think one of the things we oftentimes have done in education more broadly, but specifically business education, is we've taught the education in a vacuum. We've thought about finance or accounting or management or supply chain. We've thought of them as ends unto themselves without appreciating that ultimately, if you really look at what goes on in organizations, business is just an expression of culture. In fact, business in most societies is designed as a mechanism to reinforce culture. When we talk about a value proposition to a customer, value is inherently tied to our personal values, what our culture deems as being appropriate or inappropriate, what our society embraces or does not embrace. And my area of expertise is in management. I focus a lot on how organizations attract and retain workforces. And you have to start with the understanding that work is a social construct. What a person thinks of as a desirable, exciting job is 100% tied to who they are. And so if you ask me, how has this changed my perspective on business education, it's let me appreciate that you have to go back to the person. You have to go back to the community, the why. Why is this business important in this community? And that's important because it changes or shapes the options you have as a leader to execute. There are things that you could see as being possible, but they're not relevant or they're not deemed appropriate in that community. It's not going to happen. And if you don't connect into that, your organization is not going to be sustainable. And that is translated a lot into the way in which I have framed how we should operate as a university and as a business school.
Mhm. And, whenever I've interviewed most of the deans, they seem to have a background in operations, technology. I think you're the first person who's coming in from the HR side of business. And my gut feel always has been the operations people are able to lead administration rather well, run a tight ship, if you will, launch programs, keep things streamlined along. People in tech seem to have a similar mindset. And I'm very curious about, somebody from the HR space leading an organization. And I really want you to sort of talk about how this has worked out for you, and how do you manage your teams at your university?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I start with the premise that we're a service organization. We're a professional service organization, like a law firm, like a consulting firm, an engineering firm. What we provide is an intangible asset. It's knowledge, and that expertise, that value that we're able to create, it's 100% tied into our people. There is nothing unique or differentiating about our building. I mean, there are buildings that are nicer, there are buildings that are not as nice, but I am confident nobody's coming and paying money to come to my school because of my seats. It is all because of the capability of my workforce. This is my faculty and my staff. And so my starting point is, how do we develop the right people? How do we create an environment that allows them to unlock everything that's in them? And how do we continue to develop them? And I think that is foundational to what we do. And so then my job then is, given that I have a highly intelligent, educated, motivated workforce, is we frame this as a story about innovation. So what are the things that we need to put in place to encourage our faculty and our staff to be open to creating new approaches towards education, whether that be new programs, whether that be changing in their classrooms? They need information, right? So we have to be very transparent about how we operate, what resources we have, what is possible. They need to have voice, right? So they need to be able to understand that they can communicate and express opinions about key decisions around the school. And finally, there has to be a sense of trust and a sense of flexibility. You cannot have innovation if everything is scripted. And so my team has to understand they have a level of discretion around how they can actually try things. And we go through this process of ideation, experimentation, reflection, right? Continually walking through that cycle where we allow the ideas to bubble up from the group. We identify ones that have potential, so we try experiments where we make meaningful investments, but we, limited scale. Then we reflect to understand what can be scaled. And it's just going through that process that allows us to be an innovation engine. I mean, we are in essence an R&D entity. We do research, right? And what we're trying to do is identify how fast we can take those insights from that research and translate it into really innovative educational offerings. So I've kind of framed what we do in that way, modeling it very deliberately after, very successful R&D organizations globally, as well as the way in which successful professional service firms run, so that we maintain a very strong customer or student focus.
Okay. And, I would then love to hear, so the world is sort of moving in terms of technology, and there's a very strong focus on data science and AI. And from your perspective, how are you bringing it into programs? Do you think these are long-term, technologically, fundamentally, they're going to shift the way business schools operate? Or do you also feel that they might be a blip on the radar, like a lot of other technologies have promised to be?
No, I think the AI aspect of this is a permanent change in what we do. I sort of liken it to the way in which, the web or information technology in the early 2000s fundamentally changed the way we thought about how we do what we do. Now, the various iterations and how we played out, we're still experimenting with. And because we think it is pervasive and that it will touch all aspects of operations, the way we've approached it at our business school is that we have some technical programs which are designed to really develop deep expertise, such as our master's in business analytics. But we also have expectation that we would weave this across all of our curriculum, such that students begin to see how this is going to touch what you're doing, whether it's in HR, whether it's in supply chain, whether it's in marketing, because we see this as a tool that people will be utilizing in a wide variety of capacities across their work. So we've sort of taken both approaches, deep dive into particular areas, really being very strategic about how we roll it out across all of our domains, encouraging our faculty again to ideate, coming up with experimentations, and we have mechanisms in our governance where we are actually on a regular basis reflecting on what are you seeing, how are students reacting to it, and doing this in partnership with industry, I think, is also very important.
So, as both an academic and the head of an institution, do you feel that sometimes there's a primary disconnect from what organizations or corporations require from an MBA graduate and the skills that a business school provides?
I think it can be, but I think this is where we, again, following the model of what you see from many successful, innovative organizations around the world, we've tried to really work hard to develop a co-design approach towards our curriculum. And what I mean by that is, we have different expertise. So our academics are bringing strong conceptual, theoretical skill sets. That's critical because that allows an individual to actually appropriately, if you like, map out or frame out complex issues. Things you cannot get from work experience alone, right? Work experience alone is not going to help you understand how to manage artificial intelligence because we don't have that experience. This is where the strong conceptual skill sets are really important. However, application is equally important. We're a professional school. So how do we create opportunities for our students to actually apply their insight real time so that when they get to the office of their organization, they are customer facing ready? And one of the things we do around that is deeply embed consulting projects with real companies, with real data into our programs. So we do about 30 of those a year across our MBA, our specialty master's degrees. And this is all designed so that the actual education experience is being co-designed with relevant industry players. We also have a Dean's Advisory Board that gives us great insight on what their needs are as an employer, keeping in mind that those change over time. And so I think it's just this evolution that we're going through, understanding that the role of the academy is to provide students with the conceptual capability and some of the technical skill sets. But we don't do that in a vacuum. We do that in partnership with industry so that when students are able to go into their settings, they understand how application will play out. I think if you're doing that, that disconnect is kept to a minimum.
So there was always this challenge at top business schools that the academics, the professors, feel that because of their deep research, that they should be teaching things that are about the future, and they would really like to deep dive into a subject. And sometimes students feel that those specific things that they're being taught are not immediately usable in the market. And so there is this challenge between research-driven professors versus students who want something a little bit more digestible so that they can immediately apply. How do you deal with that pressure or balance at your school?
We partly deal with this because of by thinking hard about who we have as the teachers. So we have a set of research academics, more traditional academics who are very much involved in academic outcomes in terms of their research work. They teach our classes. That's very important because they are the ones that are creating the new chapter for how organizations will run. And it's important for our students to see that. But we also have a very large pool of lecturers, many of whom are coming from industry. They are not career academics. They are individuals who've had success in industry, running organizations or leading products and services. And many of them are teaching classes as well. And so over the course of our portfolio, our students are going to get exposure to award-winning researchers who are going to challenge them to think about how they're framing challenges going forward. And then they're also going to get exposure to a set of very successful professionals who are going to help them understand the realistic opportunities of applying ideas and executing projects in organizations. So I think it's unrealistic to think that there's one person that can do all things. Maybe there's a few, But across the portfolio of scholars and practitioners that we expose our students to, we feel that they're able to get a good balance in terms of their conceptual skill set, as well as their practical application and execution capabilities.
Okay. So I had a second question around AI, where certain schools are figuring out how to best integrate AI into the curriculum, because as you said, they've realized that maybe AI is not something that's going to go away. So I would love to hear about how you're thinking about making that as a part of the curriculum. How can you use AI as a collaborator within the school and not as a competitor?
AI is really having an impact on us in four ways. So one, it's changing the content of our curriculum.
Mhm.
So as I mentioned, we've launched a Master's in Business Analytics that has a very strong machine learning, artificial intelligence curriculum associated with that. Some of those courses would be available for people in other programs to take as electives. So that's very important. Secondly, that's sort of teaching the technical skill sets around artificial intelligence. Secondly, we're very concerned, and I think it's very important for us to understand that AI is a tool. And while it is important to understand the technical aspects of the tool, it is also important to know the contextual implications of the tool. And this is something which I'm personally very passionate around, that as we've gone through various forms of innovation over history, mastery of the technical aspect of it is not a substitute for understanding the appropriateness of using it. And so a few years ago, we actually launched an AI ethics course, which we run for our students. And this has been highly subscribed to by our students. We typically bring in individuals from industry to teach this course. And it is all around understanding how this tool has potential benefits, but also what are some of the unintended consequences of this tool, and what are the ethical frameworks that individuals should be using such that they are using it in a responsible way, in a way that enhances outcomes for all, as opposed to perhaps creates bias or generates discriminatory outcomes. So it's not just the technical component that's impacting our curriculum. We're also having to give more thought to the conceptual frameworks or the contextual setting around how this is being used. Thirdly, it's a tool that has implications for how we evaluate. And so there's been a lot of discussion around generative AI. That's one part of AI. And clearly, we can have students, concerns around students using ChatGPT to write up their essays and all these things. Well, I think we've taken an approach of we need to lean into it as part of our assessment. Indeed, it is unlikely that people will go into the work environment and not use this as something that drafts out emails or briefs and the like. So what this allows us to do is move away from baseline learning around memorization or even writing grammar to more around conceptual skill sets. And so we have courses where students are encouraged to use ChatGPT, for example, in their assessment.
Mhm.
Right. So for example, we write a test, we give the test to ChatGPT, ChatGPT gives the answer, and the assignment or the assessment for the students is to grade ChatGPT's answer.
Okay.
Right. And why that's important is that's teaching a higher level skill set. That's conceptual skill set. That's conceptual understanding. It's being able to understand what's missing as opposed to generating an outcome. And then finally, artificial intelligence, I believe, holds a lot of potential for us in terms of our operations. How can we create a more customized experience for our students by utilizing this technology through, say, our advising, through the way in which we actually manage data and information through our organization. So we actually hope, like many organizations, it will allow us, our workforce, to be more productive.
Okay, I got that. Now, you mentioned that you have worked with companies, with executives across 30 countries, right? Now you have 30 countries and you have 4 countries where you've sort of even been a professor. I have a very specific question for you. Having seen the world in this multicultural format, what do you think are the key lessons that other deans are missing because they've not had a chance to see the world in the way that you have while they're running that institution?
Well, I don't know if I'll say they're missing, but I can definitely tell you I know what I've gained. And to create value across all those various different settings, you have to sort of step back and say, well, what's common? How was I able to use my skill set to create value for them? And there's some steps that I think I just had noticed. The first one is really being clear on the why. So when you typically work with an organization, they're interested in talking to you about a how. So we want to increase the number of staff we recruit or retain, and we like to generate this amount of outcome for this particular product. How do we do that? But the why of why we were going about doing that is very different if I'm doing work in the UAE versus if I'm doing work in Malaysia versus I'm doing work in Australia. And being able to pinpoint that is important because the why ultimately sets the criteria for what the option set can and cannot include. And if you miss that, you may come up with what you think is a suitable how, but it will be completely inappropriate and not very motivational for the parties that you are actually trying to convince to execute. And even in domestic settings, such here as the United States, I'm in Orange County. We're very fortunate. This is an extremely diverse community. A very large representation of Asian communities, Chinese, Taiwanese, Korean, Filipino, Vietnamese. We have a huge variety of backgrounds. And even in this setting, I know when I look at my student body, that while all of them are interested in understanding the how to run a business, the why for each of them is very, very different. And if we are not able to tap into that as an education institution and celebrate that, then we're not getting the best out of that individual. And we have to understand that each student is going to contextualize that understanding in a way that's consistent with their vision and their dream. Are we broad enough as an institution to incorporate that and legitimate that into the way in which we teach them? And if we are, they're going to be extraordinarily motivated. We're going to get the best out of them. We're going to see a wide range of innovation that comes out. If we're not, we're going to actually suppress the thing that could be our strength. So I think that's a big learning for me about how to engage globally and truly engage in a global commerce.
Okay, that's a fabulous answer. So I'm going to move the track a little bit to students. So from your perspective, what do you think are the top 2 or 3 critical factors that any MBA aspirant should consider when selecting a business school?
Well, I'll tell you what I tell my students. When they come to the Merage School of Business, they are joining a school that has an opinion. And I think you need to appreciate every business school has an opinion. Now, we all teach finance, we all teach accounting, we all teach the various subjects, but there is an underlying theme of where we want to be excellent. And I guess one thing I would ask this aspirant is, what are you trying to accomplish? And does that match the opinion of that school? For us, our school is really firmly built around technology. We see technology as a core answer to pretty much all the issues that society and business is facing. We would like our students to sit very comfortably at this intersection between business, technology, and entrepreneurship, with the idea that technology would create new business models, and these new business models have the potential to create new companies. And so we frame everything around that. So if a student was interested in that, we're a good fit for them. So I think one thing I would say is, what are you trying to accomplish? And does that fit with the opinion or the theme of that school? Because each school is going to have a different set of investments it makes, such that it really thrives in one particular area more so than others. So that's one. The second thing I would say is, it's not just what you're going to learn, is how does that institution form partnerships with institutions that are consistent with your goal? So it's not just that I have experts on technology. It's not just that we've developed a curriculum around that. It's also that we're surrounded by some of the most advanced technology companies in the world. So we have great relationships with them. We have great relationships with the health tech and the medical devices and med tech, the artificial intelligence, the data analytics firms, the gaming industry, the virtual reality industry. These are all the electric vehicle industry, the rocket launching industry. These are all organizations within 30 to 40 minutes of our campus. So we're great at that. Those are the relationships we have, and those relationships, they become conduits for our students so that they're able to get involved in those activities. And I guess lastly, I think Is it an environment that will be supportive? Do you see yourself, who you are at an individual level, your identity? Do you see yourself being embraced by that institution? I think for many situations, students go to a school and they have to suspend who they are and just kind of gut it out, right? As opposed to having an environment that truly embraces who they are. I think if you're having to do that, you can be successful, but it's very painful. And I think I would encourage students, don't do that. There's nothing wrong with who you are. Go to a place that embraces that. That's going to allow you to fully have voice. And if the organization is not truly inclusive in that way, it's probably not going to be a place that you're going to get the most out of the first two things that I described.
Okay. So, Professor, one of the questions that sort of has always, every school has a hidden gem, and it's something that everybody outside does not know, but people within know. So I'm really curious as to what do you consider the hidden gems of your institution that you would want the world to know?
I think we do a few cool things. And I don't necessarily want to make the case that they're unique as much as they're just something we do that's really, really good and has profound impact. I'll highlight our Masters of Innovation and Entrepreneurship program. This is a relatively new program for us. It is designed not just to encourage students and support students who are thinking about creating new companies, but also students who are thinking about moving into companies, but moving into commercialization of technology space. This program has gone from strength to strength to strength. We have a wide variety of non-extracurricular activities that support it. So for example, our new venture competition that we run is a campus-wide competition that our students participate in. It is 400 plus individuals, 100 plus teams of ideas that runs over a 7-month period. We give out over $100,000 at the end of this to seed these ideas. I'm really excited that for the last several years, most of the winners have come out of our Masters in Innovation Entrepreneurship program. And this is students competing against doctoral students, postdocs, faculty, the whole gamut. And so there's something about what we're doing there where we're giving them that ability to understand technology, business model, venture creation in a very sophisticated way. So that's one that we're very proud of, that is growing and that is really doing some amazing work. Maybe I'll give another example, which is on the complete other end of the spectrum. We have taken a commitment to really make ourselves an engine of mobility for our community, social mobility, economic mobility. And we appreciate that that doesn't just happen at the graduate level or even the undergraduate level. And we've invested in launching high school programs. We want to create that new pool of talent that's going to hit our society. So one initiative that we have is called our Future Leaders Initiative. It's designed to encourage high school students, particularly from underserved or underrepresented communities, to pursue careers in business around technology. And it exposes, freshmen, sophomores, 14-year-old, 15-year-olds to fintech, medtech, entrepreneurship, virtual reality, to really create that appetite in them that these are careers and opportunities that you should be thinking about. There's a little bit of selfishness. We would love for those students one day to come and join our institution. But most of them don't. Most of them actually go to other universities, which is fine. We really want this to be a driver of educational attainment for our community more broadly, with the idea that that generates the workforce that we're going to need here locally. So we're doing things at different ends of the spectrum that I'm pretty excited about, that I think are overall changing the pipeline of talent that we have available for us here in Southern California.
So you seem very excited about technology and entrepreneurship. And so I would really want to hear about, in the areas of technology, what are some of the couple of really cool things that you've done over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I'll give you something we've been dabbling with the last couple of weeks. Last week, we launched our digital twin of our campus. And so we are now experimenting with virtual reality. We've launched our first virtual reality course this quarter. We have a digital twin that we're going to begin using for curriculum. And I think similar to the artificial intelligence conversation, we're not clear exactly where this is going to go. No one is, but we know that this is a market that's not going away. We believe it will be part of our repertoire in terms of how we're able to reach people. We think actually it could be a game changer in terms of increasing access to our world-class education. And so we want our faculty to begin experimenting with this with the idea of understanding, like any pedagogical tool, when is it optimal? How will we best utilize it? And then, of course, there's a scaling up of our workforce so that they can optimize around it. So this is something that we're playing with, that I have some excitement around, that I think will show some big dividends for us in the near future.
Okay. So now moving on to a little bit personal, what according to you are the three aspects of measuring success, be it personal or professional?
Well, I'll tell you my why. I talked about that earlier. I'll tell you what it is for me personally. And my why is, I get up every day and I have a lot of joy in what I do because my goal is to increase access to a world-class education. That's what I'm trying to achieve. That was my dream that I had when I was an undergraduate. It's still the dream that I have today. And if that's your goal, then the ways I measure that is, I kind of break that down. So increasing access is really an appreciation that, I need to always be thinking about who's in the room, but equally thinking about who's not in the room and why are they not there. And so for me, a measure of success is, have I expanded the pool of people who are actually engaging with our school? I tell my team all the time, we can go through some very detailed analytics about our operations. But one of the basic things that I use is, if a person in my community is having a problem or has a question around business, do they consider us as the place to come to get the answer? And that goes a long way. So which communities are coming to us for answers and which communities are not coming to us for answers? Why aren't those communities coming? What can we do to make ourselves more accessible to them? World class. So, I believe a world-class education starts with thought leadership. And so that means we have to have the ability to generate new ideas. And that is something that we focus a lot on. I'm proud that we're a Research One institution with really high caliber faculty. And how do we continue to reinforce and develop that? And we're doing a lot of work right now around recruiting top-tier faculty in areas like fintech or sustainability, so that we have that expertise. And finally, I think, do people feel a sense of genuine connection? We talk a lot about inclusive excellence in our institution. So do people feel as if they can share who they are, what is important to them, and how that's shaping the way they want to utilize business? So I think those are the three buckets that I'm constantly thinking about and ensuring that we've made a bet. We believe that if we're able to do that really well, we're going to generate an offering that will be very attractive and very impactful for people.
And in your personal life, do you operate similarly?
I do. I think in terms of my personal goals, as I mentioned, I got into this because someone gave me a bet. They said, I bet you can learn something new every day.
Right.
And I try to live up to that. I try not to be afraid of that. I try to, myself, I've been doing some personal experimentation with virtual reality and how I'll bring that in. When I teach my class, I teach an executive MBA class. I do that class as part, I build it around a company. So it's a living case with a real company. That's a pretty big challenge. That means every year I got to go out and do some research and learn about a new company and really get in the depth of what that actually is. But it keeps me fresh. It challenges me to learn something new. It means that when I'm going through that learning process with my students, I don't have the answer because it's a real life thing. I have to continually think about that. And so I think those are things that allow me to maintain my passion for myself. And I think that's something also I try to do with my family. So, can we create situations for my family where we're able to go and see and do, and particularly for my children, I have 3 children. I hope that opens their mind to what's possible in a way that perhaps I did not see when I was their age.
Okay, and maybe the trickiest question for last. If you had to explain what an MBA is in less than 10 words, what would it be?
Implement the why that excites people to accomplish meaningful, complex goals.
That is interesting. It looks like you just branded a business school, by the way, but that sounds pretty interesting, though.
There we go.
But what a pleasure to talk to you. You're one of the finest, most concise and incisive people I've had a chance to speak to. I love the fact that why forms most of how you want to lead your life and your institutions, and that is extremely powerful.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Hey,
What a
listen,
pleasure talking.
it's an honor to talk to you. Congratulations on the success of your organization, and thank you for the opportunity to do this today. I
Thank
look
you so
forward to
very much.
seeing
Have a
seeing
fantastic
the
day.
results. All
See
right,
you.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.